The story of Oak Island discovery began with quiet whispers, not bold announcements. The first signs of something unusual appeared when a strange post flickered across an online forum. The post was simple, unmarked, and deleted almost as quickly as it was uploaded. But in those brief moments, it claimed to show pages from a secret geological lab report taken out of Nova Scotia. Those pages described something people had searched for during more than 2 centuries of digging, guessing, and hoping. The report said that gold had been found in Oak Island's deep core samples. Not normal gold, not modern gold, but gold carrying a purity fingerprint linked to the medieval era, the age of the Knights Templar. The moment this information began to spread, everything around Oak Island started to change. It was no longer just a place of old stories. It was becoming a place where history was waking up. The leaked report claimed the samples were coded and sent quietly by the team working on the island. No names, no logos, no notes. Only depth markers, coordinates, and weight data. But someone inside the lab recognized the numbers. They knew exactly where the sample came from, and that was the moment the leaks began. According to the report, the gold in those samples did not match any modern mining source. It matched gold refined in the 14th century in Mediterranean regions linked to the Templars. The document even included a redacted note stating that the composition was consistent with Crusader-era alloy. That alone was enough to send shockwaves through the archaeological and historical worlds. Then came the chilling part. A whistleblower left a voice message for an investigative journalist. The voice said that the results of the lab tests had been hidden for reasons of national preservation. The whistleblower claimed the authorities knew exactly what the gold was and they knew where it came from, but they would never say it publicly. After that message, the whistleblower disappeared from the internet. No username, no replies, nothing. Almost as if they were wiped away. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Mahone Bay was filled with journalists, news vans, and drone operators, all looking toward the island to see what would happen next. If the leaked report was true, then Oak Island was no longer an unsolved legend. It was a confirmed treasure site holding something far older and far more valuable than anyone imagined. Soon after, another leak surfaced. This one was from inside the same lab, dated May 14th. The report described microfractures in the soil, strange sediment density, and something extraordinary. Gold traces were found at depths of more than 160 feet. The spectrometry tests showed that the gold alloy matched Venetian trade gold from the late Crusades. That finding alone suggested that the gold did not accidentally fall into the ground. Someone placed it there. And based on the carbon-dated residue around the samples, that someone acted around the year 1350. That date overlapped almost perfectly with the disappearance of the last Templar fleet, a fleet rumored to have sailed west carrying the last of the Templar treasury. For centuries, historians argued about where that treasure went. Now, for the first time, modern science and ancient legend were sitting on the same timeline. The report even ended with 3 haunting words printed in bold. Origin, non-geological. That meant the gold did not come from the earth naturally. It was put there by human hands, deliberately, carefully, with the intention of hiding it. The leaks continued. Metallurgists noticed that the elemental structure of the gold was still unusually stable. Gold buried underground for 600 to 700 years should have signs of oxidation and decay. But this gold did not. That meant it was stored inside some kind of sealed or protected container. This was not scattered dust or accidental residue. This was stored treasure. And someone long ago had taken extreme measures to make sure it survived unchanged. As all of this information spread, the team working on Oak Island stayed silent. The brothers who had spent years digging into the island made no official statement, but their silence only fueled the speculation. Soon reporters and researchers began spotting unusual activity on the island. Trucks arrived in the night. Platforms were built near the garden shaft. Security increased, and cameras were no longer allowed to film everything on the island. One team member was overheard saying, "They are not filming this part. Whatever they are doing, it's not for the show. It's for confirmation." Soon after, an unmarked helicopter was seen hovering low over the island before flying off toward the mainland. Several boats were also seen leaving the island late at night, carrying wooden crates covered with tarps. No one knew what was inside them or where they were going. Calls and emails to the team went unanswered. Even their closest associates refused interviews. Only one statement came from the team. One of the brothers, when asked about the leaks, said, "We're not looking for legends anymore. We're validating history." Those words set the world on fire. Satellite images then revealed heavy machinery digging deeper than ever before. Security patrols blocked visitors from approaching the island. Fishermen in the bay reported that floodlights burned through the night as machines worked non-stop. Something big was happening, and it was obvious that whatever was being uncovered was not a small discovery. Ground sensors recorded strange metallic readings below the surface. Dense, uniform, and arranged in patterns that did not resemble natural deposits. Engineers said it looked like multiple metallic objects placed deliberately in specific locations, possibly inside chests or reinforced containers. Crew members who had worked on the island for years began to sense that this time was different. One camera operator later leaked a private message describing the moment the scanner detected something large underground. Everyone froze. It didn't feel like a show anymore. It felt like we were trespassing. As speculation grew, rumors surfaced that the government was watching the island. 2 different countries, possibly more, seemed interested in what the lab results implied. The reason was simple. If the gold truly came from medieval Europe and had connections to the Templar Order, then ownership of the treasure could spark international legal battles. Monarchies, religious institutions, and private collectors could all claim rights to it. The treasure was no longer just gold. It was political, historical, and deeply cultural. It was a symbol of a vanished order. While all this unfolded, another leak emerged. Artifact valuation experts began releasing information about items said to be removed from the island. The estimated total value was over $95 million. The listed items included a gold fragment decorated with a medieval cross, clusters of Venetian coins, and 3 lead tablets covered with writing no expert had fully translated. One of those tablets, after digital reconstruction, showed markings that lined up with a set of coordinates beneath Smith's Cove. Those coordinates pointed to an area that had supposedly been fully explored years ago. But clearly, something was still hidden there. As that news spread, panic quietly rippled through the world of antiquities. Experts feared that if the Templar gold was confirmed, private artifact markets could collapse overnight. This was not just a discovery. It was the kind of evidence that could rewrite parts of world history. Monitoring activity from private accounts in Zurich, Monaco, and Luxembourg also increased. These accounts were believed to be connected to historic banking families. Some of those families had long-rumored connections to ancient financial networks that once supported the Knights Templar. The appearance of these accounts watching Oak Island gave the story another layer of mystery. Soon after, new restrictions were placed on the island. Satellite phones were taken from workers, drones were banned, families of the crew had to sign new agreements. All of this suggested that something enormous had been found, or was about to be. Then researchers in France made a discovery that shocked even the experts. The hammer marks on one of the gold relics matched those on a preserved medieval reliquary believed to belong to St. John the Baptist's chapel. The same style, the same artisan, the same era. Quiet messages sent between experts in Europe and the team on the island confirmed that the relics were almost certainly linked to the Templars. Behind closed doors, the crew began calling the discovery the Grail Gold. They no longer believed they were searching for scattered treasure. They realized they might have found a symbolic deposit, a message from a vanished group that had left their final legacy sealed within the island's soil. And then,
tunnels and shafts, a dome-shaped chamber appeared, a perfect, intentional structure carved with precision. Surrounding it were alcoves that formed a flower-like pattern. Each alcove echoed metallic readings. The team sent a small underwater probe into one of the openings. When the camera transmitted the first image from inside the chamber, everyone in the tent fell silent. The walls were carved with Templar crosses. They were old, worn, covered in mineral layers, but still clear. The chamber was not a natural pocket or something caused by erosion. It was a built vault. But even stranger was what the engineers found next. The chamber contained hydraulic features designed to protect whatever was inside it. These were ancient pressure valves and flood channels that would seal off sections if intruders opened the wrong area. Whoever designed this vault had engineering abilities centuries ahead of their time. More scans showed that the vault was aligned with celestial patterns. All 8 sides of the vault matched the autumn equinox alignment from the year 1308. That year was significant. It was the year the Templars were hunted, arrested, and driven into hiding. The vault was built with purpose. It was not only a treasure chamber, but a symbolic message carved into stone. As the team continued to explore, an inscription appeared on a chamber wall. After cleaning away mineral buildup, the words became visible. Non serviam, I will not yield. This phrase was a message of defiance, a declaration of resistance. The Templars had carved that message into the vault itself. This was not just treasure. It was a story of rebellion and survival. When sensors read hollow spaces beneath the main platform, everyone felt the weight of history pressing down on them. Beneath the plinth, deeper channels spread out in patterns that looked engineered. The lower voids were untouched, completely sealed for centuries. Government officials arrived soon after. They were quiet, serious, and escorted by security. They placed protected historical zone signs around the island. New laws were enforced. No drones, no public access, no unsupervised filming. Then strange things began happening. GPS signals around the island became unstable. Drone footage disappeared or corrupted. Hard drives malfunctioned. Devices shut down without explanation. These events could no longer be brushed aside as mere technical issues. Rumors grew that certain countries believed the gold belonged to past sovereign powers. That meant they could start legal battles to claim it. The brothers who had devoted years to the island now had to work under strict supervision. They were allowed only limited access. Their tools were scanned before use. Their footage was reviewed before they could broadcast anything. But they refused to stop. They continued working in silence because they knew what they had started. Meanwhile, an independent lab in Europe secretly analyzed preserved samples that had been smuggled out before the lockdown. Their results matched the original lab's findings exactly. The gold came from the same regions and the same time period as the Templar mining operations. Researchers said the gold had been refined using methods centuries ahead of its time. One researcher called the unique fingerprint the oak signature. As this happened, the deeper scans of the vault revealed something that stunned everyone. The entire structure was an octagon. Every angle aligned perfectly to magnetic north and ancient star charts. This was the same design used in Templar churches and strongholds in Europe. It was an architectural signature of their belief system. Hydraulic valves carved into the stone still worked, even after 700 years. When air pressure changed, water channels activated. This explained many of the flooding incidents that defeated treasure hunters over the century. The flood tunnels were not accidents or natural formations. They were intentional traps. The Templars built this system to protect something sacred. Every feature of the vault showed intelligence, purpose, and engineering beyond what historians believed was possible for that era. During one scan of the southern chamber, a Latin phrase appeared when illuminated with UV light: non serviam, I will not yield. This message again reinforced the idea that the Templars had carved statements of resistance into the vault. They were not only hiding wealth, they were preserving something deeper: their identity, their faith, their message to the future. Then the discovery took another turn. A hollow area beneath the plinth led to a sealed chamber lined with clay and strengthened with traces of mercury. This was a preservation technique used by medieval alchemists. It protected sacred objects from rot and decay. Robotic arms opened a chamber wall and revealed a collapsed chest. Inside were shards of glass fused with molten gold. These were fragments of ceremonial vessels. They were not treasure used for trade or wealth. They were likely used in religious rites or sacred ceremonies. As Rick lifted one of the fragments, light refracted off it in shimmering colors. "It's real," he whispered. Those two words carried the weight of centuries. This was no longer just a rumor or legend. It was proof. Then, beneath the chest, another discovery changed everything. A stone slab held an inscription that became the key to the island. The engraving revealed the phrase, "Gloria in terra nova," glory in the new land. Beneath that phrase were symbols similar to Norse runes. They formed coordinates that pointed not to the island, but to several underwater voids in Mahone Bay. Those voids were artificial, and they were large. That single tablet suggested something massive. The Oak Island Vault is part of a larger network, a hidden system stretching beneath the bay. This meant the island was either an entrance or a central point of the entire system. The Templars did not hide treasure in one spot. They created a network of vaults, each connected by coded markings, star charts, and engineering designs. As experts worked on translating the runes, they realized the Templars may not have been fleeing Europe. They may have been planning something. Some scholars believe the inscription suggested a mission to build a new sanctuary across the ocean, a new base of faith, a new beginning. Not long after this discovery, major news outlets around the world suddenly released coordinated announcements. It was official. Templar gold had been confirmed by lab tests. The value of artifacts reached over $95 million. Everything that had been whispered, leaked, and rumored was now public. Gold fragments, Templar seals, and relic shards had been authenticated by a coalition of experts across continents. When the valuations were completed, the world realized this was one of the largest verified medieval discoveries in North America. The government quickly issued a new order. The island was shut down to the public. Armed guards protected the perimeter. No drones could fly within 10 kilometers. The site became a restricted historical zone. Even the team members had limited access. Rick often stood near the water at sunset, holding one of the gold fragments he had found. The light reflected off it, casting bright glimmers across the waves. He said softly, "The mystery never ended. It just waited." And somewhere under the water below the island, more chambers remained untouched. More secrets were waiting. More messages carved centuries ago by hands belonging to an order that disappeared but somehow left their final words to be found. And even though the world now knew the gold was real, one question still remained unanswered. On a fog-shrouded night in Mahone Bay, the research team on Oak Island noticed a strange anomaly on their sonar, a pressure shift deep beneath the water, exactly where their scans indicated another vault might lie. At the garden shaft, floodlights illuminated the ancient chamber as hydraulic valves hissed and stone shifted, activating after centuries of dormancy. Dust fell from the ceiling as robotic probes revealed carved Templar crosses on the walls and a collapsed chest containing shards of ceremonial vessels fused with gold. Beneath the chest, inscriptions glimmered under UV light. Gloria in Terra Nova, a message hinting at a hidden network beyond the island. As the team studied the chamber, the bay itself responded. Circular ripples spread across the water, and sonar picked up large metallic objects rising slowly from the depths. From the fog, an unmarked, fast-moving boat appeared, heading straight toward the newly surfaced vault. Meanwhile, inside the chamber, the robotic probe discovered a sealed metal cylinder wrapped in ancient linen. Its contents, thin metallic sheets, etched with unknown runes and encrypted symbols, glimmered under UV light, carrying a message from centuries past. Tempus aperturis est. Time will open it. The crew watched in awe and unease as the Templar-designed vault emerged from the bay, angular and deliberate, its carved crosses glistening in the floodlights. The mysterious boat drew closer, and the team realized someone else knew the location. Someone coming for the same treasure. As Rick and Marty stared at the rising vault, the weight of history pressed down on them. The Templars had built not just a treasure chamber, but a network, a message, and perhaps a test, intended for those who would come after. And now, centuries later, that test was awakening. The unmarked boat sliced through the fog, its engines humming like predators closing in on prey. On board, figures moved swiftly, unfazed by the rising vault. They were well prepared, armed with sonar, lights, and tools designed for underwater recovery. On Oak Island, Rick and Marty watched helplessly from the observation dock, the cold wind carrying the briny smell of disturbed water. Every ripple, every groan from the emerging structure felt like a heartbeat echoing through centuries. The vault's stone edges gleamed as water cascaded down its geometric surfaces, revealing more carvings, crosses, symbols, and lines etched with such precision that even modern engineers struggled to understand their meaning. Inside the chamber, the cylinder that Rick had discovered pulsed with quiet mystery. When they finally unwrapped it, the metallic sheets inside shimmered under the UV light, covered in a script that combined runes, Latin, and symbols that resembled a primitive encryption. Scholars who had deciphered fragments whispered that it was less a message for the past and more a set of instructions for the future. The Templars had not just hidden wealth, they had left a guide, a path, and perhaps even a warning. Rick traced his fingers over one sheet, marveling at the clarity of the engravings despite centuries of burial. They expected someone like us, or maybe no one at all, he muttered. Meanwhile, the bay responded to the activity within the vault. Sensors began picking up subtle shifts in water pressure, as if the submerged tunnels beneath Mahone Bay were interconnected, synchronized to the chamber's activation. Every ripple and sonar ping suggested that the other vaults, hidden beneath forests, bays, and even parts of the coastline that had long been mapped over, were responding. It was as if the Templars had built a system designed to awaken only when the right conditions were met, only when someone worthy, or perhaps just persistent, disturbed the initial chamber. The unmarked boat reached the vault, and figures aboard carefully lowered ropes and grappling equipment. Their movements were precise, practiced, and undeniably professional. On the island, the research team realized the confrontation had begun before a single word had been exchanged. They were not alone. Someone else had been waiting, monitoring the bay, watching the signals, perhaps even following the leaks from the Oak Island laboratory. The stakes had escalated from treasure hunting to a race against unknown rivals with technology and knowledge far beyond anything seen in previous expeditions. Rick and Marty, now flanked by engineers and technicians, debated their next move. They could not allow the vault and its secrets to be claimed by outsiders. But the structure itself was more than a simple chamber. It was a trap, a test, and a marvel of engineering. Stone